The Desert of Arabia. A bush with branches like wire may find enough moisture to grow and even flower. But this pitiless desert will kill a man who doesn't take water with him. Even for the Bedouin Arabs who navigate it, the desert imposes its own conditions. The Bedouin way of life was not adopted for its picturesque quality, nor from any innate love of freedom. Jeddah, the principal port and main gateway into Saudi Arabia, epitomizes the country, a mixture of ancient Arab culture and Hilton Hotel architecture. But if it looks to the heavens for spiritual riches, it looks now to the earth for its economic wealth. For centuries, the small city of Jeddah and others like Medina and Mecca were the only settlements and sources of trade and revenue in a patchwork collection of deserts and quarreling tribes. The key was oil. Last year, revenue from oil totaled $4,000 million. Jeddah, like other towns in this country, has some of the richest traffic jams in the world. They use Cadillacs for taxis and have built modern streets, shops and apartment blocks to match. As the thirst for oil grows bigger, this place gets richer and richer and richer. Such incredible wealth has fundamentally changed this once dusty little town and its people. Western money has brought Western attitudes along with it. In a generation, a new society has been created and Bedouins have become businessmen. Saudi Arabia's responsibility as the protector of the Muslim faith is a serious one. A separate ministry of pilgrimage has been created to supervise the smooth running of the Hajj and the welfare not only of the 500,000 who make the trek from overseas, but also the other 500,000 who make the journey from within Saudi Arabia itself. Two new pilgrim cities have been built near Jeddah to accommodate them. Fleets of buses are provided to take them the 50 miles to Mecca, and new roads, built by British and Italian engineers, have been laid down to smooth the journey. A century ago, making this dash across the desert meant risking attack from nomadic raiders who grew rich on loot they took from the caravans of the faithful. Without a volume of statistics to prove it, it's sometimes difficult to believe that Saudi Arabia is one of the most richly endowed countries on earth. Bedouin tribesmen embarking on the long trek to Mecca pursue an existence which differs little from the pattern their forefathers followed 2,000 years ago. They come from Saudi Arabia's empty quarter, a seemingly endless expanse of sand where nature is capricious and shifty, a land of searing heat and occasional rainstorms, where the very shapes of the sand dunes are continually changed by the winds, where oases which were sweet one year are bitter the next, where to plant a seed is an act of hope, and to see it wither away before bearing fruit is not to be surprised. The desert is dangerous and thereby creates a camaraderie which transcends any division of tribe or nation. The desert can kill a man, but another man might save his life. Therefore, the hospitality of these nomads is profuse and unlimited. These people have never been touched by successive conquests of the Arabian Peninsula, and they are largely untouched by the new wealth which nature has revealed beneath their feet. What they do have is a faith, and once a year, they too join the mass migration to Mecca, the Hajj. By night as well as day, teeming thousands pour into the town of Jeddah. If it looks like Las Vegas, the similarity stops there. No wine, women, or song are allowed to sully the solemnity of the Hajj, and through the Arabian night, long convoys push on into the desert. For some, the road to Mecca is a smooth cruise in a car. For others, a camel ride or a long walk. What they have in common is a deep-rooted urge to answer the call of Mecca at least once in their lives. Each year, the numbers of Hajj pilgrims seem to multiply, partly due to the fact that the Muslim world itself is increasing by about 10 million people a year, partly due to swift, cheap air transport, and in some part at least, due to a resurgence of simple belief in a complicated world. In this wild country, the immovable, in the form of the Muslim faith, meets the irresistible, in the form of 20th century change. But it seems to make little impression on the old. At the time of the Hajj, the population inside Saudi Arabia is swollen by a fifth. From the alleys of Algiers to the streets of Singapore, Muslims from contrasting societies flock to Mecca. And like the flood of money it reaps from its oil, Saudi Arabia absorbs them all, without allowing any of them to alter its ageless structure. At the gates of Mecca stands the tented city. Here on the plain of Arafat, the pilgrimage of the Hajj reaches its climax. From here, the ritual begins. The purpose of the Hajj is to allow the pilgrim to purge his soul, an objective given substance by this ritual stoning of the devil. A Muslim is intended to put aside worldly business and contemplate the mystery of his existence. Yet there is little room for contemplation. At the core of this sacred edifice, the sheer weight of numbers makes it difficult to sustain the basic simplicity of the pilgrimage to Mecca. What was once an opportunity for a man to ponder the marvel of Muhammad's teachings, which began here and now influences 1/5 of the world, has taken on the appearance of a gigantic package tour. There is barely time to pause or to reflect. Those who travel thousands of miles to gaze at the shrine, the black-draped Kaaba, the house of Allah, do so in the company of 300,000 others. The first to perform the rituals at the opening of the Mecca rites is King Faisal ibn Abdel Aziz. He comes to kiss Abraham's stone, a meteorite now worn smooth by the lips of unrecorded millions. And once His Majesty has performed the act of faith, lesser mortals may follow. From this moment, 1 million more pilgrims, some here, some still wending their way, will obey the ancient precepts of the Hajj, all minutely described and all to be rigidly observed. and none follow them more willingly than this fiercely religious king. After observance of the ritual, the prayers, and the vows of obedience to the scripture of the Prophet Muhammad as written in the Quran, comes the final act, 7 circuits on foot around the Kaaba itself. The Kaaba is said to have been built by Abraham on the site of the Garden of Eden, and is the focal point of all Muslim belief. To abandon this place, Muhammad said, would be to signal the very end of the world. It is far from being abandoned. Each year, more pilgrims come here. Each day, 1/5 of the world's population turn their thoughts here. And Saudi Arabia is guardian of it all. Saudi Arabia and its ruler, King Faisal, rightly regard themselves as the stewards of the Muslim faith. Yet the annual pilgrimage of Muslims, the Hajj, serves more than simply a religious purpose for king and kingdom. It serves as a reminder that Saudi Arabia is a potent force in the Arab world and beyond. Faisal, a 64-year-old monarch who assumed the throne 9 years ago, is firmly anti-communist. He believes communism to be the mortal enemy of Islam. Saudi Arabia has no diplomatic relations with any communist state. The Russians seem equally eager to label Islam a tool for class oppression, despite there being 30 million Muslims within the Soviet Union. During the Hajj season, however, all Muslims, even those of communist states, can enter the kingdom to fulfill their religious duty. The delegation from the Soviet Union usually numbers fewer than 24 persons. While the foremost advocate of Islamic solidarity, Faisal refuses to support or condone the excesses of Palestinian terrorists. And unlike his predecessors, he is applying the wealth brought by oil to the good of his people. Faisal greets foreign dignitaries during their visits to Mecca, taking the opportunity to mix politics with religion in a new and powerful combination. Religion provides Saudi Arabia with its heart, but oil provides it with the muscle. The one without the other would render Saudi Arabia either pious and poor or rich and isolated. But together, they have enabled it to become a treasure chest for the Arab cause, an outpost of anti-communism, a fuel pump for the industrial West, a rallying point for the Third World. But above all, Saudi Arabia is the guardian of the Muslim religion, the defender of the faith, the focal point of the belief. And it is to this that the kingdom has clung most closely. It accepts 20th century technology and the benefits it yields, but it will have nothing to do with the more doubtful qualities of our age. It has one foot in the contemporary world, but the rest of it remains 13 centuries away. It seeks and achieves a place in the sun, but draws a discreet veil across its face, in the best Muslim tradition.